Well, good day. This is retired Fire Chief Paul Smith with a Marin Fire History update for you today. We are sponsored by the Marin County Fire Chiefs Association, and in this episode, we're going to introduce Kathleen Cutter. And Kathleen is with Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, and she's going to give us a brief update of the wildfire prevention activities that have gone on this last summer. So good day, Kathleen, and welcome to our show.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's nice to have you. Marin Wildfire Authority has been very, very active. We've noticed the last year and a half or 2 years. Can you maybe give us an update of the wildfire prevention activities the agency's taken on and kind of where we are in some of those projects? Today we can talk a little bit about, wildland fire inspection around the homes. We can talk about residential hardening. We can talk about shaded fuel breaks and evacuation plans and whatever else, you'd like to chat about for the next, 15 minutes or so.
Okay, well, wonderful. Yes, as you know, the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority basically has a number of goals that they want to set out to make Marin a fire-adapted community across all of our different communities. Of course, we have, from Novato all the way down to the Golden Gate Bridge and all the way, west to the beaches. So we have a lot of different territories to cover, a lot of different communities, and not only in microclimates and micro communities. So reaching each and every one of those communities is super important to make sure that we're safe and adapted to wildfire. One of those, I could briefly talk about the shaded fuel break. I am a defensible space lead for much of Marin, okay. But let me speak of the shaded fuel breaks at first. What they're doing is a shaded fuel break is a swath of land that they remove all the invasive bushes and plants that are non-native, and that goes around the community. So it's about 300 feet wide, just outside the built communities, and they leave the mature trees. So that provides the shade. So you have the shade, you have low grasses, and it's a phased operation. They'll do initially the removal of the bushes and the understory that, again, is non-invasive. And basically the idea is to raise up the canopy of the trees, reduce the fuels underneath. So if a fire were to approach from our wildlands into the communities, you're reducing the flame intensity and the flame height and the fire intensity. It doesn't stop fire, but what it does is it reduces that hazard coming into our community. And they're started a 38-mile shaded fuel break around Corte Madera to, it loops around back behind Kentfield and Fairfax and over to Santa Fe to 101. So it's from 101 just of Santa Fe and all the way down to Corte Madera, 38 miles. And they're started that, which is wonderful. They're doing it in sections, so each community gets a little bit of benefit. And then they're also starting one in Novato, and that, oh gosh, now of course I'm forgetting the exact mileage, but that's quite a bit longer, and they're just beginning that. And they've gotten grants from Cal grants to get Cal Fire grants to get these done, as well as other grants. So that is, they're getting work underway. And they're also talking to, just making sure we're doing it in an environmentally sound way.
Sure.
So we don't interrupt vegetation that is endangered or just to make sure we're doing it the right way to consider our ecology. And so it's a really well thought out, very many steps to process to get to where it needs to be. So it's quite exciting. That's very unusual, that the extent of the mileage we're doing on that.
That's huge. I've watched the crews this last summer, and you're absolutely right. They do a really nice job of thinning out the vegetation, and I've been able to walk around the watershed through the shaded fuel breaks that have been created, and it really is a park-like setting. It's like walking through a park, because the areas in the hills in the Ross Valley where I live, almost impenetrable to a hiker or a walker. And now they've done a fantastic job of, and I know what the plan is to reduce the intensity of the fire. And it
Exactly.
also I've got to tell you, it looks nicer too. So you're doing a great job with that.
Yeah, I think you hit it. It's the deferred maintenance over all these years of non-work in these areas, and we don't need to deforest the forest, but what we do need is to reduce the amount of fuel right along the edges of our built communities, and that's what the shaded fuel breaks are all about. And you're right, the look is a park-like setting. It's not denuded. It's not, clear cut. It's about keeping those canopies that the canopy trees keeps the shade on the ground, reduces, it increases or allows the fuel moisture to be retained as well. So it's,
Sure.
again, really well thought out.
Yep.
You mentioned the evacuation routes. The evacuation
I
route.
know we went to a couple of community meetings in the last 2 years, and that's one thing that I've picked up from those is members of the community seem to be concerned about if there is a fire and I get an evacuation order or recommendation from, law or fire, what's the best way to leave my community? So I know you've worked on a number of those, and the caveat, of course, being is today we don't know the wind direction, the direction the fire is going, the prediction, and all that. So I think some people have an expectation of having it 100% of the time evacuation route. But maybe you could explain a little bit on what the process is with asking people to leave if we need to.
A great question, and you raise a really good point, which is fire is unpredictable.
Yes.
The big concern about a wildfire like that they had in the mega fires is the winds, the Diablo winds coming out of the northeast, sweeping down to the southwest. That's a big concern. So even with that, though, it can be tricky. We just don't know. And the old adage of just take the route that you would normally take to the grocery store is the best route to go. You want to go down to the valley floor and out to the widest road available.
Mm-hmm.
You always want to evacuate in a vehicle, never on bike, and never by foot. And there's a few reasons for that. If you think about your car, it's a box. It has glass and it has metal. It has recycled air. It has a radio that puts you in connection. And there's radio stations that are dedicated during these times to giving instructions. You just have that box protection. If you see videos of people evacuating on motorcycle, you can see that they actually can't handle the heat. And I know, Chief, that when you're standing next to a fire, the heat is so intense, you can't really even fathom it until you experience it. And there's just no way you can evacuate on bicycle. Not only that, if you're evacuating on bicycle, oftentimes it's dark, like night. If you've seen some of the campfire videos, you become a target for people evacuating in smoking conditions, dark conditions. You become, someone who might get run into because you're on a bicycle. They don't see you. Also, you have no protection from falling trees or branches or anything like that.
Sure.
But the real key is to get out early. Sign up for Alert Marin. Alert Marin will text you. It will, call you until you answer to get you that message. And it will say, A, you are under evacuation order. Leave now and leave immediately. Just pack your bags and go. Or it will give you evacuation warning, and it just tells you prepare. And this is when you want to do those last minute things like throwing the cushions on near your within 5 feet of your home into your house, opening the gate, propping it open, your wooden gate with a big heavy rock because fire creates its own wind. So you want to make sure that gate doesn't snap shut. That will prevent fire following your fence and bringing it to the edge, to your wooden siding or your eaves. So there's little things you can do to really prepare your home and for the responding firefighters, so they can have a better chance of helping your home. And that's what I'm all about, is defensible space. But during an evacuation, leave early and just have that go bag and just go. they've done last thing I'll say about evacuation, unless you have a question, of course, Chief, is they've done a lot of work on a lot of the routes, just clearing vegetation alongside. Just, during red flag warning days, make sure you're parked with your nose out, your front of your car out, so you don't have to back into traffic. It helps evacuation. And don't park your cars on narrow streets. Try to park them in your driveway, just so responding firefighters have a better chance of getting up there smoothly. And do not go up into people often ask, sorry, this is one last thing. Often ask if they can have the keys or can they go up fire roads. No, you don't want to go towards a fire. Generally, the fire is coming out of the woodlands and into our built communities. Those fire roads we really want to leave for responding firefighters, because sometimes they'll come that way to make a one-way kind of situation. Just down and out, always on paved roads.
Good point. Excellent point. You mentioned you were all about defensible space, and maybe we can touch on that a little bit. I see in the neighborhoods all through the Ross Valley this summer with wildland fire inspections crews out today. And are they going house to house and checking neighborhoods, or how? What is that plan, Kathleen, and how's that going?
Thank you for asking. Yes, every year since 2020, when the MWPA came into being, it's really put a lot of funding behind our defensible space inspections. That's one goal of the MWPA, is to inspect every home every third year. The program that I run, it takes care of all of Marin with the exception of Tiburon, which is not part of the MWPA. Novato, they have their own program, and the city of San Rafael has its own program.
Okay.
And I take care of, our program takes care of 5 different agencies from Southern Marin, in unincorporated San Rafael, also, so all Marin County, Kentfield, Ross Valley, Central Marin, and as I said, Southern Marin. And our program really has pooled resources from all these agencies and expertise. And with this combined force, we're able to use Marin County Fire Department as our seasonal employment pool. So they provide the seasonals, and we hire them all summer long. And this year we did 20,000 inspections going door to door.
You said 20,000.
20,000 is what
20,000 door to door. 20,000. That's a ton.
And what's so wonderful about that, we've reached Southern Marin. This is the first time our program has done this for Southern Marin, and it was great for them to see us for the first time and get them on board of some education about what it is to be a wildfire adapted community. And some of us have seen us for many years in a row. And what we do is when we go there, we knock on the door, we announce ourselves, we say we're here to do an inspection. We use software that's state of the art. We piloted this in 2021, and now it's being adopted all over the Western United States. So it's a really one-of-a-kind software system that allows us to collect some data, so we know where we need to target projects for our communities to help them achieve the vegetation removal that we would like to see. And it also provides an individualized report for every property owner, and it outlines things you have to do. And these are vegetation removal projects, or maybe maintenance that you have to do, like removal of leaves, or make sure that your trees are pruned up, things like that, removal of dead materials. And then there's also recommendations. And the recommendations, all the home hardening are simply recommendations. They're not required. But it's on there so if, let's say you have wood siding on your home, that is a more vulnerable choice than, say, fiber cement board. However, we're not asking you to replace your wooden siding. What we're asking you to do is, hey, you have wooden siding, that's a vulnerability. So these are a few steps you can take to make your wooden siding less vulnerable, by moving mulch away from your home, by not having plants right up against it, by keeping any wooden, like cornhole game. We have a cornhole game at home. We lean them up against the house, and we're like, well, that's wood. That's not a good item to have right up against your house, because what brings houses down, like 60 to 90% of the homes in wildfire, succumb to wildfire from embers flying from up to a mile away, landing on combustible materials near your house, which includes cornhole games, plant materials, anything like that, setting the siding on fire, setting the actual structure on fire. So
Sure.
that's why we're asking you to pull it back.
Sure. And that makes sense. That's just like your wooden house is not going to spontaneously combust.
Correct.
But you have the kindling, like your cornhole game or your firewood for the wintertime, something like that. You have even your lawn furniture with the stuffed cushions and stuff. You're absolutely right. You need to remove that vulnerability. It's giving your house a better chance, I think is what you're saying, Kathleen.
Yes.
A better chance of survival. Yep.
Right.
Totally makes sense.
Your house is like you can either regard it in one of two things. Like some people like to think, or some of my inspectors explain it as a dead tree, and you just don't want a lot of kindling around your dead tree, because that's what it is. It's a inert structure that's made of combustible materials. Or I like to think of it as logs in a fire. Like if you have a bonfire, your house is a log. You don't want a lot of kindling, as you're saying, right up against it to
Correct.
get that house going. Embers are going to hit the sides of your house, and they're going to fall to the ground. They're not going to stick to the side of your house, even if it's wood siding, and set that side of the house on fire. Sure. It's going to fall into the wooden mulch that's right up against the house, get that plant going. And then, if that plant is underneath a single pane window, it's a very vulnerable spot. And sure. That is what our reports are all about, is educating you to your vulnerabilities and pointing out some ways that you can do that are pretty economical to reduce the risk. And then we say, like, hey, in the long term, if you are considering replacing your siding because it's aged, it's time to replace it. Sure. Consider choosing a non-combustible siding such as fiber cement board or stucco.
Sure. Makes sense. And you hit a key point there. And in fire prevention, it's always been about education. And what we need to do is what you're doing is educating our Marin County public about, hey, these are some things you might want to consider, and you'll keep yourself and your family safe.
Exactly.
So thanks, Kathleen. Those are three really good points we talked about today. Defensible space and residential protection, and of course the shaded fuel breaks with improved egress through the major roads. You said you're doing vegetation management along those too, because absolutely right. Our main roads and all through our communities, if you're trying to get people out, those roads have to be passable, and right. Removing the vegetation and that around that is just another step, right?
Correct. And we also want our firefighters to have a good chance of getting to the home, and you want your home to be inviting to the firefighters. You want them to pull up in their engine and go, I can commit not only my engine, but my people. This is a good place to make a stand in this neighborhood. You want to be that house.
Right.
The firefighters are going to do the best they can, of course, but let's make it as easy as possible. Give us our homes the best chance of surviving the wildfire if it were to happen, as well as letting us all escape as safely as possible.
Good deal. Well, appreciate you giving us the little update this afternoon. It's been great to meet you, and good to get the update from Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. I wish you luck. We're heading now into the fall, and hopefully we'll get some rain like we did last year. Yes. But moving forward, you're doing good stuff, and I appreciate the updates.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and thank you to everyone who's doing their part to make their home and community safer from the threat of wildfire. We really do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.